just keeping my feet down for this first bit.
Yeah, that looks scary.
Oh no, I don't have any brakes! Or steering, which is what we're gonna work on today. I've got my air rams that are gonna become hydraulic rams. Just need to mount them and connect them with lines, fill them with fluid, and do some other things, and we'll have steering. Step one of the steering for today is making the bracket that welds onto the hub for this to bolt through. I'm gonna go cut a couple of those out, test fit them, and then if they work, tack them on. Now that I've cut that out and tacked it in place, I've decided I don't like it. I designed it to go down below this hole here so that, you know, it didn't overlap it, but I've decided that it would just look better if it came up to this edge here. You can see I just chopped it so that the point where the heim joint attaches just sticks out farther. That way it can rotate all the way around there and have, without all these washers in there, it'll have plenty of clearance. I think I have a design here for my steering ram mount. So you can see I have these two end plates here that'll fit over this little flange. I have this piece, which I'll cut two of those, and that'll span between those flanges. It's got little tabs on the end to slot in there. I cut out a couple of these pieces here, and I realized that I did a stupid, and my stupid is that when I made these little tabbies on the end of here, I subtracted them instead of added them, so I made it too short. I've got all my bits and pieces cut out for this steering ram mount. I wish I had nuts for this, but I keep forgetting to get them when I'm in town. Look at this. This is by far the tiniest part I've ever cut out. Itty bitty little part.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's kind of satisfying.
It cut surprisingly well for how small it is. I mean, it blew through a little on the corner there, but that doesn't really matter because it gets filled with these tabs and then welded. So, like, it's not an issue because it's going to be welded through there anyway. There we have it. Steering ram mount. Fully disassemblable. Disassemblable! It's a fun word, isn't it? Oh, hi. Hello. Mr. Breadloaf. Bredrick von Wolfenstein? Oh, hi. Who's jealous? His name's Frederick. We call him Bredrick because he just loafs around. This was previously modified to fit on the end of a shock on the Barbie Jeeps. Grind Hard Recycling Co. At it again. I'll have to go from this side or else it unthreads it. that looks quite nice. Even lines up fairly well with like the center line of this and the center line of that and all that. Let's see how it looks when we do this. It's a good bit of angle that way.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I think that works. If I were to get this point here a little closer to center, we'd have a little bit more angle, steering angle both ways, but I'm really not too worried about it.
Yo, that is awesome. That is
Doesn't
so
that look cool to watch?
The articulation of this whole thing
Yeah.
and that
'Cause it
movie
moves.
is very cool.
I'm still waiting for another ram here. I've ordered a bunch of different ones. I've got the short one here that's the same diameter, but that doesn't work. And what I ordered is a 4-inch, so that's 4-inch stroke, but with 2.5-inch bore. And I did a bunch of math the other day and figured out that much volume on that side moving 4 inches equals about 8% more than the volume needed to move this one 6 inches. Now I need to do the math of how long to make the steering arm on this to move that ram 4 inches, but to have that be a roughly equal number of degrees of steering here as here.
Don't we actually have like notepads?
I don't know where they are. Oh, there's one right over there.
That's
It's more
better
fun to
than
write it
that.
on a tube, though.
That's way better.
Yeah, because then Will's going to use this in his project, and I'll be like, where'd my math go? With a combination of measuring things, some basic math, and then using the CAD program here to do geometry without doing actual geometry math, because I didn't do that much school. Steven here helped me think through this. We're about at the same level on math, but talking it out loud helps.
Yeah.
I think that for ease of steering at low speeds and trying to maneuver this thing around, and also it'll make it less twitchy, I want to make this steering not totally one-to-one. On a motorcycle, all steering is one-to-one. Ever, pretty much. But in cars and all other vehicles, it's rarely one-to-one. It's essentially never one-to-one. You know, like that mini truck there, it's probably like 3-to-1 or something. It's like, 3 turns of the steering wheel equals whatever degrees of steering angle you have. 4 inches exactly would give us about 8% more angle on the handlebars than on the tire, which you'd still get all of your range of the tire. You'd just have to turn the handlebars a little more than that. And there we have it. A nice little needle bearing. Yet another piece of salvage. Let's see. Yep, Hayabusa. Will, there's now gonna be a part of the Hayabusa in this bike.
Nice. All the bikes. It's like a transformer or something.
Yeah, we've got CBR 600, CBR 900, Hayabusa brakes. I was looking around for a piece of stock to make my bearing housing, and I found one that's a hexagon, which will be super cool because then when I make the steering arm, which I already designed most of it, I can just modify the end of that with a hexagon exactly this size, and it'll just slot in there, weld it in, good to go. Check out this fitment. This is what I call precision. It's snug. It's not as snug as you would think it should be because I know I'm gonna weld this and I know it's gonna get tighter when I weld it because it'll warp it in some way or other. Will's having computer difficulty. Just in the background of my shot. Oh my god, come on, man.
It's like
the computer. Dude, I feel you. That computer with that CAD program, or the CAD program on that computer, it's the glitchiest thing ever.
You think it looks better with the round end around the hexagon? Or...
In this case, I kind of think the hexagon.
Yeah. I think so too. The round just looks kind of weird. I finished making this part, and I realized it looks like a stubby little wrench, which is funny. And then I thought, what if I used an actual wrench? I have like 3 inch and a 16th wrenches from some yard sale years ago, and I like it, but I think I should probably, my thought at the moment is that it's a really cool idea to use on some other build. It doesn't, because this isn't a rat rod. Like, this is a rat rod type thing.
Personally, I saw that idea in my head when you were talking about it, and I was like, oh, super cool. But I think the whole point of this project is to be like handcrafted, and that's like an
This is a
out the
rat rod
box
thing, yeah.
sort of thing.
It's really cool,
It
and
would
I'll
be
use it on
sick.
something else. Moving on. Oh, I'm just gonna cut out my little wrench full of hexagons. Actually, I'm gonna cut 2 of them. It'll be lighter and stronger that way, rather than making one super thick. I'll do 2 thin ones, and they'll be, you know, one at the top edge, one at the bottom edge. That might be salvageable. Might not. I'll probably just cut 2 new ones, but that more or less works. It's a little loose on there. I'm not sure if that's due to the number that I picked or due to the torch height being off because of the GoPro. Same settings on the Arc Droid. I changed the amperage of the plasma cutter by like 3 amps, I think. I turned it down 3 amps. See how loose that is?
Yeah.
Same cut, same speed, 3 amps less.
Oh, really? That is crazy, actually.
Like, sometimes just a couple of like a tiny bit of a difference. Yeah, that was.
Will needs to make a tiny change too. I saw it.
He has his phone in his back pocket.
Okay. I'll do 10 push-ups to get you off my case, okay?
Oh, nice. As it cools off, it should get a little bit tighter, but yeah, that ought to work. Steering pivot bearing is, you know, if we ever need a replacement, it's a Hayabusa suspension linkage bearing. This is all welded up, looking nice, and you know, it'll go somewhere on this. I'll make a little spacer when I determine the height so that I can just clamp it up against that and get it nice and flat and then tack it on there. The further I stand over here, the less the beam is an issue, but then the more the roll cage of the golf cart is the issue. I think as hard as... You're off to a great start, Edwin. You're off to a great start. Maybe just like a little underhand shimmy, like skipping a rock. Blind assist. I can't actually see the can. Oh, that was close. The ladder.
Stick with me and I will guarantee.
Let's see. Oh yeah, that's better. Way less sag. That's what we want. This motorcycle stand goes down very slowly. Yeah. Seems a little more...
That seems a lot nicer.
Yeah. The front's still maybe a little soft, but...
Can you adjust the preload anymore? Or
the front's maxed out. The rear honestly feels pretty good. But the rear is not maxed out on preload at all. It could go a lot farther. It's interesting how much they affect each other's travel. Like or that's what it feels like anyway, because the whole thing travels straight up and down basically. Can you imagine stunt biking on this thing?
In a Batman suit with like a cape.
Yeah.
That would be.
If anybody knows anybody, start working on that right now. This needs to be in Mad Max.
Check it out.
Since I'm kind of waiting on parts for the steering, that'll be here soon, but in the meantime, I'm gonna make some shock reservoir mounts for the front and rear shock reservoirs because I don't have any mounts for them, and I want them to look very nice. So I've designed up a piece here in CAD. I'm gonna cut it out, and then it'll need some post-processing, so to speak. I'm gonna bore out the center perfectly with the mill so that, or maybe the lathe, depending on which works better, so that it doesn't have sharp little slaggy bits clamping on the reservoir. And then I'm gonna have to weld a nut and a bolt to it on the top to clamp it together. There we go, that's the piece. I intentionally made it a little bit too small so that I can bore it out, but that's the idea. Look at that. That's a quality fit right there. The sticker's holding it up, but like that. Little bolt there. Very nice. I'm making some bolts out of a bolt. No, actually, I'm making nuts out of a bolt. So I'm just gonna drill and tap this to 6mm internal threads and then cut little sections of it off to weld onto the other end of this. So the bolt goes through there. I know this is extremely extra. I could just weld a nut on there, but it wouldn't look right. So it'll look just like that, but be threaded on the inside. Shock reservoir clamp 1 of 4, complete. You know, some people would just use like a hose clamp, and I have done that in the past, but this chopper is way too nice for that. I'm gonna do the rear one first because there's nothing that's in the way of it being tacked on there. Now that I've ordered enough of these air rams to power like an entire Iron Man suit, I think I finally have the final one that I actually need. So now we have a bunch of those to make something else out of. But this one just showed up, which is good because I've been kind of waiting for it to do the other half of the steering here. clearly weight reduction is important on a tiny part. I'm gonna get that positioned just right and then tack it on to the steering stem and then start designing the mounts for this, which are gonna be fairly complicated and multi-faceted because of course it's gotta bolt onto this end and be removable and then also have plates that go this way to anyway, I'll be designing for a while. This is all but one piece for making the ram mount here. It may not make a whole lot of sense, but we've got an end plate for this end with two little tabs on it that align to those two holes, right? We've got an end plate for that end with two holes for bolts. We have an end plate that, just like I did on the other one, that sits on top of the ram right here that slots into this, this notch here. Man, I'm really just wasting so much material here. I really need to use more of that. My hexagons fell through and melted a hole in the air hose. I'm gonna see if I can just tape it for the moment and fix it later. Big slag. Behold, the parts. They worked, at least so far. We weld them together, tap the hole, and then, you know, see what happens. Time for a little garage decoration here. And we got our Everlast banner. Been loving the Everlast welders for the last few months. We've had them pretty much ever since the day we moved into the new shop. That's a nice looking banner up there. I like the spot. Seriously though, I've been loving the Everlast welders ever since we got them. Check them out. They're really good welders at really good prices. Nice banners too. Look at that. Check it out. Oh, that is satisfying. That's extremely satisfying.
That's awesome.
Here, let's pull the plugs out of there so we can experience it better. It'll be less floppy once the other half is on here, because right now that's just not tight. So. You know that Chang-Li reel we filmed yesterday? Imagine if like the actual company that makes Chang-Li's like found that and then like wanted you to come film an ad for them, and then you actually got to net your true hero Donnie Yen from that.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Wouldn't that be hilarious?
That would be hilarious.
Are you William Greenway? Can you come to China and film ads for our little car? You'd be like, yo!
Go to China so quick to film.
And then the battery box would have a picture of you and Donnie Yen on it.
Donnie Yen just has his arm around me like.
There's my piece, all shinied up. Now I need to bend it. So I know from what I was doing in CAD, I'm going to bend it right there at that edge of hexagon, and right there at that edge. Now for my final trick, some AN hose and fittings. And yes, I know this is not high pressure like hydraulic hose, but the thing is, the pressure in there is only ever going to be what you can apply to it by pushing on this. And I'm not going to bother to do that math, but those cylinders are rated for 250 psi of air, which is a very different thing than fluid, obviously. And this hose is rated for working pressure of 400 psi and a burst pressure of 1,000. So it'll probably work, and it'll certainly work for testing. And you know, we'll yoink it around a whole bunch and move it back and forth a lot before we drive it and make sure it's not gonna like expand or burst or leak or anything. But it's cheap and easy, relatively to getting custom hydraulic hoses made. And if it proves to be a weak link, then we can get hydraulic hoses made to exactly the length that I made with this. Are you ready to find out with us what happens with one hose hooked up and no fluid in it?
Yeah, I'm actually.
This is 50% air steering.
Hey, a little bit of thanks.
I mean, it just compresses the air, but
Yeah, that's
like,
nice. Hey, it works.
yeah. Obviously, that's not the intended usage. It's supposed to be filled with fluid. I just wanted to get the line hooked up, and
Yeah, that's cool. Do you have the other one?
I don't have it hooked up yet, but
Yeah,
it's
but-
right there. It's standing next to it.
Nice.
It's just AN lines. So I'm just
Very nice.
making them. So, oh, I know. I'll jack it up a little bit more, and then we can see it move without any weight on it. It's a delayed steering right now because the pressure builds and then the tire moves. Also, I hooked up the lines wrong.
I was gonna say, isn't it moving the wrong way?
It is. I thought I did that right, and then I was like, wait a minute. I did not do that
That
right.
is the coolest thing I ever did see.
Yeah. That's funny. I Yeah, that's hilarious that I did them wrong. Well, that means I have to probably... No, the length should be pretty... Well, we'll just see. If I have to make a new one, that's fine, but...
That's so cool, though.
That is so cool.
Reverse steering.
Yeah, we could have a challenge, like, who can stay on a monster chopper at 60 miles an hour, reverse steering?
Right? The hoses are now hooked up to the right side of the rams, and the routing also is better now of the hoses.
Whoa!
It's so weird watching it be delayed.
That's the closest thing I've ever seen to Bluetooth steering in my life.
It kind of is Bluetooth steering.
Yeah.
I like watching the Rams do opposite things. Like this one's over.
Yeah,
this one's nice. Now I just have to figure out how to get fluid in there. Last night, after everybody else left, I was out here looking at this thing and pondering things and contemplating. And I was thinking about the shocks, and there was two issues with the shocks. One, they're a little too soft. The rear one is actually quite good now with the Hayabusa spring in there. But two, the real issue is just they're old and crusty, and they look old and crusty, and this deserves better than that. And there's just not that much adjustment in them, like preload and stuff. So I was contemplating it, and I was looking at this air shock on the wall, and I thought, I mean, I had considered these earlier, but I was like, well, you know, let me revisit this idea, see if it would work, because air shocks have near infinite adjustability of spring rate just by adding air pressure. So that would be really convenient. And they're cool, they look cool, and they're super lightweight. So I grabbed this one off the wall, I pumped it up to 150 PSI, which is its stated maximum pressure. And then I put it on the rear, and it sagged all the way to the bottom with basically no resistance. So that was out. But I was pondering it and thinking, man, if I just had a larger diameter air shock, that would be great with less travel. And then I thought, wait a minute, I do. This is known as a TSS. It stands for Timber Sled Suspension Strut. It's part of a Timber Sled snow bike kit, and it goes where the original dirt bike shock would go, but it's super, super thick and beefy, so that because at the back end of your, you know, however long a snow bike track is end to end, all of that leverage happens at the back, so it's like, you know, 30, 40 inches of leverage on the shock. So it needs to be super beefy and not have much travel. So I thought of that idea, so I went and grabbed this one off my snow bike kit, which is not yet attached to my bike because we haven't had enough snow. But it solves all of the problems. It's now plenty stiff. Like that's actually...
Wow, that's a lot stiffer.
Yeah, it's probably about right. But more importantly, it can be adjusted up or down in pressure quite a bit. And on top of that, it's adjustable in length because of the way it's designed. Because it's designed to fit a bunch of different bikes, you have to have it be adjustable for the different geometry of the bike. So independent adjustment of ride height. So if I want the ride height to be just a smidgen higher or lower in the front or the rear, I can just adjust the threaded bit here and have that adjustment. So this one is kind of crusty. I'm gonna stop by Timber Sled probably tomorrow and pick up a couple of fresh ones because they are local here in Sandpoint, so that we can have shiny Fox Air Shock Timber Sled goodness on both ends. Alright, so this end is filled with fluid and the hose reattached. So now I'm going to, since the ram is fully extended, I'm going to compress it until fluid comes out here. And then we know that end, that hose will be all full of fluid with no air in it. So the trick is to do that without spraying fluid everywhere. Whoop!
There it is.
Failure. I said without spraying fluid everywhere, fail. Definitely some air in there still. Right, those were just lightly tacked. Ha, forgot about that.
That was working so well.
It was working, except that I only barely tacked this steering arm onto the stem. Ow, that hurt. I was putting a fair amount of pressure and then it just slipped, pop. Right. Come back in a few moments once I've welded that. Is it difficult? Yes, extremely. But does it steer? Also yes.
Man, that looks cool. It does look like a little effort involved.
Yeah, but like, that's at a dead stop. As soon as you're moving at all, it'd be a lot easier. Now I just gotta figure out how to get all the air out. Also, I should put some more air in the tire. These tires are like basically no pressure in them right now. And that'll change the friction quite a bit. So I might as well do that real quick. The thing about air cylinders is they do need to be fairly precise, but at the same time, air is generally not a closed system. So if you lose a smidgen of air on every stroke of your machine that has this in there, it's not a big deal. Actually, some of them are intentionally that way. They go all the way to the end and then lose the rest of the air. Yeah, there's actually not even a measurable amount of air in there. Part of why it's so difficult to steer is this bolt is actually touching the wheel right there. That's not helping at all. I'd replace one of these fittings with a T fitting and have a little, some sort of fitting on the end where I could add fluid with a little bit of pressure so that I can bleed out air on one side and replace it with pressurized fluid on the other side, so it's not just like creating a negative pressure in there when we try to bleed it. The other thing is these lines expand under pressure, and I knew that was going to be the case, just didn't know how much. And that, I think, is a good bit of the squishiness, is simply the lines expanding. But that's why I tested this whole system with just, cheap AN lines rather than getting like a couple $100 worth of hydraulic hoses made. Currently I'm not, I'm just turning in a direction. Oh yeah, that's so sick. When you're moving, it's not nearly so bad. I mean, it's not easy, but...
That looks crazy. Oh my gosh.
It does work.
Really well, actually.
All right, let's go backwards. Beep, beep.
I have so much leverage on this tire, it's really easy to push you.
Yeah. Also, yeah, with a little bit of movement, the steering is manageable.
That is weird looking from my angle.
Oh, no doubt. Right, well, I'm gonna think on it for a bit and see if I can come up with a way to add some force into this system externally that is not supplied by arms. That, or I just sit here every night and just actuate this about 20 times real quick, just get super jacked. And like magic, we've got actual hydraulic lines for this. And they were not even particularly expensive because it's very small. It is as I feared. And the system is not really gonna work. So one, I made a stupid decision when I bought these hydraulic lines, and they are slightly smaller in diameter internally than the AN lines, and I didn't really think that was gonna be an issue, but it is. It made it actually harder to steer. Well, if you're going slow, it doesn't change it, but like actually that slow. It's basically an incredibly excessive steering damper. But more importantly, I figured this out kind of as I was filling this, because I was more careful, or I mean basically the same process to fill it this time. These cylinders just aren't gonna hold up to this. Like, not the pressure, but they're just not accurate enough. They're meant for an air system where a little bit of a leak here and there isn't a big issue. Or maybe they're just old and they've been banged around a bunch. I don't know. They were like overstock stuff from eBay, but like, they just, you can see on this one over here, it leaks, it's got a little bit of seepage here, but like, no matter how well I bleed it, air finds its way back into the system. I really thought that a lot of the squishiness was gonna be in the AN lines because I could feel them expanding in my hand, but it turns out the squishiness is because it's actually impossible to properly bleed this system. And even if it was, these cylinders aren't perfect enough of a seal. I'll probably switch back to the AN lines because they look better and work better, ironically. It's kind of a lot of effort, but I went to this much effort to build the system. I want to make it work as well as it can and find out what that limit is, and then probably start from scratch. Hang all this on the wall and build a mechanical steering system. Out with the old, crusty, heavy coil springs. In with the new, shiny, lightweight Fox air shocks. And there we have it. A brand new bung. I even went the extra mile and put it in backward to just lightly chamfer that corner. This one, when I made the second pass on the threads, the the vice grip power feed clamping system failed for a moment and it skipped, so I had to take off the first couple of threads. But that's okay. I mean, this is more than enough threads. And it fits very nicely. Both of these shocks are ready to go. You may be wondering why I didn't just cut this off and retap the internal threads. And that's simply because I don't have a tap for that size, for this size, right, 5/8. I don't have a 5/8 tap. This side here was super easy. I just got the right spacers that, came with the shock, and then found a new bolt for that that's shorter. This end, I think I am gonna redesign these mounts. This one got bent because of when I was testing the previous TSS in here. I did a stupid. But for the moment, I'm just gonna drill these holes out and put a 12mm bolt in there because that's the size I have spacers for. 1 spacer. Done. That's for a 12mm bolt, so I'm gonna re-drill and tap this hole to 12mm because why not make it stronger while we're at it? Will does too, right, Will? What? Little parts like this. I'm making more of these.
yeah. I love making
This
those
one's
now.
aluminum, so it's a little shinier than the steel ones.
That's
but
premium. I want to try making some that have aluminum.
aluminum is well, actually Delrin is the most fun material I've yet used on the lathe. But aside from Delrin, aluminum is very nice. Well, I think like Will said, it's about roll me down the hill time.
Nice.
I'm sad that I
Premium.
didn't catch that on camera.
That's okay.
Oh, there were just a couple tacks.
Yeah, I couldn't really weld it because of the Delrin bushing there, so it was just kind of tacked. I was just doing a suspension test and I broke the tacks on that front shock mount. That's what happens when you don't fully weld stuff.
Thankfully, that happened before we did the roll.
Yeah, that's why you got to do a good heavy suspension test before.
If you had some
going down the
momentum
hill.
going and then that happened,
That
that would have
would
been a surprise.
Really
It would have been, but
bummer.
like, I mean, at the same time, that's brakes.
Yeah.
And it still kind of steers, so wouldn't have been the end of the world. I would have survived, probably.
Yoink.
Yoink. Yoinkalicious. All right. Gotta read his L. Nice. Donnie Yen and Will in the little car.
Hey, Will, come here really quick.
Is that the thumb? Is that the thumbnail photo? That's a good shot.
Oh, that's nice. That's Donnie Yen right there. And there's me. That's awesome.
Look, Donnie Yen watches over us. He approves of our compensation insurance thing.
That is nice. Edwin, have you seen this nice photo?
No, can I take my foot off the brake?
Yeah, you can.
I just sat down to redesign this shock mount, and it's there's an experience going on. over
Wow, that's really very nice. So the Donnie Yen thing, we didn't really explain it in the 100-mile challenge video. The batteries for the Chang Li came in a bunch of cardboard boxes. Like, they just opened the lid of the boxes they came in.
and then installed the whole thing, cardboard box and all, in the car.
It's very good for fire safety. So we
Yeah.
cut them out and put them all over the garage. And they were in the Chang Li, obviously, for the 100-mile challenge. And yeah, we didn't know who he was at first because the picture was kind of low res.
And also
I'd say.
it was all in Chinese. And
Yeah.
he's fairly well known, but he's not like that famous. The only thing I've ever seen him in that I know of is
Yeah.
Star Wars. So like,
But now we're really big fans, so.
last night I went ahead and just redesigned this mount slightly and made it way stronger. I increased this part here that goes back there a little bit so that has a little more leverage, because this is the side that's truly strong. This is the tension side. This is the compression side. So having this go around a little farther gives it a lot more strength. Man, this is how you know that this steering system is pretty silly, because it shouldn't be hard to steer without a tire on there. And it is. And that's, I think, largely due to just trying to move that fluid through all the lines. And, you know, maybe I should have done some math or something about that, but I don't really even know how to think about doing math about fluid dynamics. That's not something I've ever done. So anyway, it was a fun experiment, and you know, if you don't try weird stuff Are you really doing anything cool at all? I don't know, that quote didn't really...
hard.
Oh. Anyway, that's all back together. I'll throw the wheel on there and then we'll go roll it down the hill and nothing will break. Rolling this thing around is not that unmanageable.
Yeah, no, it only took you like 4 turns to get out of
Yeah, and I mean, it's like a 10-foot long bike.
Yeah. And this is way tighter than any like parking lot or something.
You only have to sit slightly off center to be balanced.
All right.
Of course, I'm starting with like an abrupt ditch
Yeah.
approach. Here we go! Ah!
Oh, it looks awesome.
Oh my gosh, that is crazy. Oh, it looks awesome.
It's a little bit tricky, but that's partly because I have no foot pegs to actually sit on. You know, not bad. And no brake, and no throttle.
From my view, it actually looks like you're levitating between 2 tires.
Nice.
That is the coolest thing I've ever seen roll. Like, at all.
And it
roll.
holds itself up out here with a little bit of like,
Yeah.
with the ground being a little soft.
That's so cool.
Well, not soft, but you know, with a little snow.
Nice.
That wasn't the easiest start, but that worked well.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's roll it back up to the top of the longer hill, and I'll see if I can make like you know, part of a corner there.
Yeah.
The steering is absolutely miserable though.
Yeah, it looked like it.
This is the easiest tire to pull. There's a bunch of climbing holds on it.
Oh, this hill's a little scarier. I'm just keeping my feet down for this first bit. Oh! Ah! I can't steer! I had a feeling that was gonna be the end of the fence.
Yeah, it looks scary.
I'm just keeping my feet down for this first bit. Oh!
But it wasn't me that was the first one to run into your fence.
The first one? You've run into my fence like 6 times.
Since you reset it when Kylie was here last.
Yeah.
I didn't redo the fence. This is still the same old fence.
That's the great reset, man.
I just like put it halfway back together, barely enough to hold it up.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
So we didn't want to be the first
Yeah.
ones to Shrek it, but it was you.
That's good.
Yeah, so I couldn't steer because I couldn't get the leverage needed to steer while also leaning.
Yeah.
But more importantly, and I knew this was going to be the case, like on flat, smooth ground, you can lean. But on uneven ground, this is effectively flat.
Yeah.
So you can't lean because these hit like
They
little
hit
bumps and
all the
stuff,
little
yeah.
pieces and, yeah.
Which my plan has always been to trim down the side lugs and make these more rounded. But this test drive has proven that that is more necessary.
We've had less successful test drives.
Yeah. I didn't go all the way through the fence.
Over the fence on the wrong, Will.
Yeah. I had a premonition about this. I almost said something and then I forgot to. It wasn't really a premonition, it was just a prediction that I probably would be a little hard to steer on ice. Oh, this hill's a little scarier. I'm just keeping my feet down for this first bit. Oh! Ah! I can't steer!
It was kind of funny because as you came down over there, I was like, oh, he's going right into the fence.
Yep.
And it was kind of slow. Like,
Yeah, because I just couldn't, like, the number of things needed to steer was just, they didn't work together. Like, I needed to be able to lean heavily and put a lot of force on it, and like, all of my effort was in keeping it upright, and then I couldn't lean it, but.
I'm really glad that you figured out that weld was gonna break in there.
running into the fence.
Because if for some reason it held together until that would have sucked.
You'll have that.
Yep,
This is a bigger job. So.
it is indeed one of the biggest. Well, I don't know if we can call that test roll a great success. We'll call it a moderate success. We did do a durability test on the swing arm, and it is stronger than a fence post, so that's good.